once again to Quick Trivia with Mike. It's that weekly game show right here at East Castle Place where we ask you a list of trivia questions. We ask you to put your thinking caps on and see if you can answer the questions that we ask. Sometimes the questions are a little bit obscure, but I think they're always a lot of fun. My name is Mike Brever. I'm your host and quiz master. You know, we always begin by going through 3 questions that we asked you last week, and then we give you 3 new questions for the coming week. But before we do that, I do have a little bit of announcement. For you, those of you that are Star Wars fans, you might know this saying, and for those of you that aren't, just bear with me. You'll understand it in a minute. Tuesday night, you may have noticed a disturbance in the Force. A new Brever was born on Tuesday night. My daughter-in-law and my son had my grandson, Nathaniel Michael Brever, was born on Tuesday evening. So there you have it. One more Brever to cause trouble and havoc in the world. I think we're going to be all right, though. It's going to be fine. He's only a baby, so we'll try to train him the right way. Let's get right into it, shall we? You know, once again, we start off by revealing the answers to last week's questions. I started off by talking extensively about Dwight D. Eisenhower, his tenure as a president and the accomplishments that he experienced. Also a little bit of his history of World War II and things like that. But my question to you is that he famously said, "I will not get in the gutter with that guy." Who was Dwight Eisenhower talking about when he said, "I will not get in the gutter with that guy"? Well, it was none other than the infamous senator from Wisconsin, Joseph Raymond McCarthy. Born November 14th, 1908, he passed away on May 2nd, 1957. He, of course, was a senator from the state of Wisconsin from 1947 until his death in 1957. Beginning in 1950, he took what was a really unnoticeable Senate career at that time, and he jumped onto the national stage by stating that he was extremely concerned about the spread of widespread communist subversion in the United States, and he specifically stated that he had a list of United States representatives and diplomats and employees in the State Department that were threatening the safety and security of the United States of America because they were communists. Ultimately, the smear tactics that he used ended up leading him to be censured, but only after the Army McCarthy hearings really kind of blew up in his face. A lot of his wild accusations were shown to be fallacious at that time, and it really tempered people's image of McCarthy, and it ended up with the Senate censuring him. He did, in fact, because of his tactics as United States Senator, coin the term McCarthyism, which was basically a coined term that was used to indicate when someone in a political sphere was being demagogic, reckless, using unsubstantiated accusations, public attacks on the character and patriotism of political opponents. All of that was viewed as McCarthyism. Ultimately, he did, in fact, pass away on May 2nd, 1957 at the Bethesda Naval Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland. The official cause of death for Joseph McCarthy was listed as acute hepatitis, and the cause of the hepatitis was unknown. In reality, many biographers say that the hepatitis was exacerbated by extreme acute alcoholism. So there you have it. Dwight Eisenhower talking about the junior senator from Wisconsin, Joseph McCarthy when he said, "I will not get in the gutter with that guy." Our second question, we dealt a little bit with nature and animals in nature. We talked extensively about the blue whale, the extreme size of the blue whale and its appetite, the fact that a blue whale's tongue alone can weigh more than an elephant, and its heart weighs as much as an automobile. We asked you, however, because blue whales can live to be 80 to 90 years old, and the longest living blue whale that scientists have been able to identify was 110 years old. How do scientists determine the age of a blue whale? Well, the answer in determining the age of a blue whale is a little bit interesting. A blue whale will grow earwax. I presume it's to protect their ears from the seawater and things like that. The earwax will actually form rings, much like the trunk of a tree. If you cut open the trunk of a tree, you count the rings that are exposed on the inside of the tree. A new ring forms every year of a tree's life. Well, in a blue whale, 2 rings form in the wax seal of their ear every year of their life. So that's how you do it. You count the number of rings in the wax seal of a blue whale's ear. Now, ironically, you can only test this after a blue whale dies. So that's, one reason why all of those things happen at a much later time than when a blue whale is actually living. And that's it. You test the age of a blue whale by examining the wax in their ears. That was question number 2. Question number 3. Last week, we talked a lot about that wonderful Hollywood classic, Casablanca, released in 1942, starring Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman. We told you a lot about the history of the movie and the storyline, some of the behind-the-scenes things, some of the famous sayings that came from that movie. Here's looking at you, kid. Of all the gin joints in all the towns and all the world, she walks into mine. All of those things came from the movie Casablanca. But we told you that at no point in the filming of the movie Casablanca are Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman together in a full body shot. And we asked you why. Well, the reason is because of the relative height of Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman. Humphrey Bogart, while not being a short man, was a little bit shorter than average. He was only 5'8". Ingrid Bergman, while not technically being an extremely tall person, was tall for an average woman at that time. She was only 5'10". And as a result of that, they never had a full body shot because they didn't want the viewers of the movie to know that Ingrid Bergman actually, in essence, towered over Humphrey Bogart during the filming of the movie. It's said that Humphrey Bogart actually wore lifts in his shoes during the movie. At some points in time during the filming, he stood on pillows or he stood on a little platform so that he would be a little bit taller than her. There's that gender-biased stereotype that a man has to be taller than a woman. Now, curiously, Ingrid Bergman was not nominated for her role as Ilsa in Casablanca. Really a tragedy for Ingrid Bergman, because many people believe Ilsa was her best role, her best acting role during her long and distinguished career in Hollywood. However, one of the reasons she was not nominated for an Academy Award for her role as Ilsa in Casablanca is that that particular year she actually filmed 2 movies. She also played Maria in For Whom the Bell Tolls, and she was nominated for an Academy Award for her role as Maria in For Whom the Bell Tolls. She did not win the Academy Award for that role. But the following year, after receiving rave reviews for her role in Gaslight, she did receive another nomination. She actually won her second Best Actress Oscar in 1956 for her role as, the title role actually, in Anastasia. And she won an Academy Award in 1974 for Best Supporting Actress in Murder on the Orient Express. In 1999, the American Film Institute named Ingrid Bergman the 4th greatest female screen legend in the history of Hollywood. Really a distinguished career. It can be said, though, because of the relative height of Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, and the fact that she did For Whom the Bell Tolls immediately after, that she relished acting alongside Gary Cooper, because he was 6'3". They didn't have to do anything about his height or her height to try to appeal to what they thought were perceptions of American audiences as to what a man should be and what a woman should be in a movie. So there you have it. Those are the 3 answers to last week's questions. Now, as you know, this is a competition, and people can call in prior to noon on Monday with their guesses to the answers to those questions. If 2 or more people get the same answer correct, get the same number of answers correct, we have a tiebreaker. There's bumper music selected by my producer, Scott McFerrin, that leads into the show and exits the show. Every week the bumper music is different, so you have to identify that bumper music as the tiebreaker. Well, this past week the bumper music was Pipeline, recorded by the Shantays. It was the Shantays' only United Kingdom chart hit, and it peaked at number 16. We had a lot of players this past week. We only had, how many? We only had 2 that actually identified the bumper music. We had Kelvin Schrader. Teresa Sundberg identified the bumper music as well. We did have people that got all 3 answers to the questions, though. Sandra Meyer got all the questions right. Arlene Brackensick only missed by 1. Alex Hill got all 3 of the questions right. We only had 1 person, however, that got all 3 questions right and identified the bumper music. And as a result of that, Kelvin Schrader returns to the winner's circle this week for his playing in Quick Trivia with Mike. Congratulations, Kelvin. You're going to see Kelvin's picture at the end of this show, and you'll see it on Channel 955 all during the coming week to remind you of just who our grand champion is for the week. Nice going, Kelvin. So those of you that watch the show on a regular basis, if you didn't pay attention to the bumper music when the program started today, listen at the end. I'll give you a secret. In the beginning, it tends to be a little bit innocuous. At the end, Scott really tries to hit a section of the song that's a little bit more recognizable to people. So pay attention at the end. You probably haven't missed anything yet, and it'll help you identify it. Let's get into this week's questions, shall we? We're going to talk a little bit about geography and science. We're on our way to the Amazon rainforest. The Amazon rainforest, which also is commonly known as the Amazon jungle, comprises approximately 5.5 million square kilometers, or 2,100,000 square miles. The region includes territories belonging to 9 separate nations. The majority of the rainforest is actually contained in Brazil, 60% of it, of course. The next largest section is in Peru, a portion in Colombia, minor portions in Bolivia, Ecuador, French Guiana, Suriname, and Venezuela. Or Venezuela, depending upon how you choose to pronounce that word. The Amazon represents over half of the planet's remaining rainforest and comprises the largest and most biodiverse tract of tropical rainforest in the world, with an estimated 390 billion individual trees divided into 16,000 species. Ironically, during the Amazon rubber boom, it's estimated that disease brought by the immigrants, such as typhoid and malaria, had a devastating impact upon the inhabitants of the Amazon rainforest. There are multiple tribes and denominations of residents, but they're commonly lumped together under the term Amazonians. Now, the Amazon rainforest likely formed during the Eocene era, roughly 56 million years ago to roughly 34 million years ago. Again, we just talked about some of the indigenous people and how they were devastated by outsiders during the rubber boom and the harvesting of that product in the Amazon. The Yanomami are one of the fiercest. There are still approximately 32,000 Yanomami that live in the Amazon rainforest today. Human inhabitants are estimated to have first inhabited the Amazon rainforest approximately 11,200 years ago. Over 5 million people have lived in the Amazon region since 1500 AD. By 1900, the population had fallen to 1 million, and by the early 1980s, it was down to 200,000. So you can see, civilization, which we think is a wonderful thing, is actually having a devastating effect upon the indigenous people of the Amazon rainforest. The region is home to approximately 2.5 million insect species, tens of thousands of plants, and some 2,000 birds and animals. 1 in 5 of all bird species are found in the Amazon rainforest, and 1 in 5 of the fish species live in the Amazon rivers and streams. Scientists have described between 96 and 128,000 invertebrate species in Brazil alone. And you now know that there are many other countries that the rainforest incorporates. The rainforest commonly is known as the lungs of Earth. The reason is that the rainforest absorbs carbon monoxide. The trees take this all in, and they spit out oxygen. The oxygen that we as humans and all mammals end up breathing. As the future of the Amazon rainforest goes, so goes the future of Earth as we know it. You all know that deforestation is happening in the rainforest, much of it because of the breeding of cattle. What was formerly rainforest is being cut down so that we can house cattle, which is typically used to produce food for humans. You know, the fast food franchises, McDonald's and Arby's and Wendy's, they're all growing and herding cattle in what was formerly rainforest so that we can enjoy our fast food life and feed everybody living in the world. So I don't want to give you the wrong impression. It's not just a result of fast food restaurants and the preponderance. It is food for humans in general. However, in its role as the lungs of the Earth, how much of the Earth's oxygen does the rainforest actually generate? Is 10% of all the oxygen in the Earth created by the rainforest? Is it 20%? Is it 30%? Or is it 35% of all the oxygen in the Earth created by the rainforest? Again, is it 10, 20, 30, or 35% of the world's oxygen created by the Amazon rainforest? That's question number 1. Question number 2. We're going to stay on this issue of geography and how things are impacted here on Earth because of specific regions of the Earth. We're going to go from the Amazon rainforest. We're going to go all the way over to Africa. And we're going to be in the Sahara Desert right now. Another large area of the Earth, just like the Amazon rainforest. 4,800 kilometers long, 1,800 kilometers wide. That's actually 3,000 miles long, 1,100 miles wide. It incorporates 9.2 million square kilometers, or 3.6 million square miles. That is the Sahara Desert, which encompasses much of northern Africa. It's the largest hot desert in the world. The name Sahara actually is derived from the Arabic word for desert. The desert comprises much of North Africa, including the fertile region on the Mediterranean seacoast, the Atlas Mountains, the Maghreb, and the Nile Valley in Egypt and Sudan. It stretches from the Red Sea in the east, the Mediterranean in the north, to the Atlantic Ocean on the west. Actually, however, for several 100,000 years, the Sahara has alternated between desert and savanna grassland. It alternates in 20,000-year cycles. It's because of the precession of the Earth's axis as it rotates around the sun. So for 20,000 years, it's a desert. For 20,000 years, it's savanna grassland. Then it goes back to being the desert again. The area is next expected to become green in 15,000 years. So roughly 17,000 AD, it will return to savanna grassland. A lot of interesting things about the Sahara Desert. The climate, the permanent absence of clouds allows unhindered light and thermal radiation. The stability of the atmosphere above the desert prevents any convective overturning, thus making rainfall virtually non-existent. As a consequence, the weather tends to be sunny, dry, and stable with a minimum chance of rainfall. Most of the desert has more than 3,600 hours of bright sunshine every year, over 82% in daylight hours. During the daytime, the sand temperature can easily reach 80 degrees Celsius or 176 degrees Fahrenheit. It's actually a misnomer, though, that the desert gets extremely cold at night after being extremely hot during the day. That's an actual myth. On average, nighttime temperatures tend to be 13 to 20 degrees Celsius cooler, or 23 to 36 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than in the daytime. So it's not as extreme as people think. You're not going from, a torrid heat to needing to wear parkas in the evening. It just isn't true. Obviously, 36-degree difference, though, does make it feel cold, and that's part of the reason. Also, at least 2 instances of snowfall have been recorded in the Sahara. The first was in February 1979, and the second was in December 2016. Both were, ironically, in the town of Ain Sefra. A lot of interesting things about the Sahara Desert, just as interesting as we found out about the Amazon rainforest. One of the things about the Sahara Desert, however, in spite of all that I have just told to you, is that it is not the driest spot on the planet. As measured by annual rainfall, your question number 2, where is the driest spot on the planet? As measured by annual rainfall, where is the driest spot on the planet? I will tell you, it is not somewhere in the Sahara Desert, okay? Somewhere else. That's your clue. Question number 3, and your final question for the day. Last week we talked about Dwight Eisenhower, and we wanted to know who he was not going to get in the gutter with. Turned out to be Joseph McCarthy. Question number 3 talks a little bit about an accomplishment that started during the Eisenhower presidency. We're going to talk about the interstate road system. We call them freeways. Some places they're called tollways. That's because we don't charge anybody to drive on our roads. Illinois does, therefore they're called tollways there. Its correct name is the interstate highway system of the United States. The Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate Highways, commonly known as the Interstate Highway System. It's a network of controlled access highways that forms part of the National Highway System in the United States. Construction of the system was authorized by the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. And you remember Dwight Eisenhower was president from 52 to 60. He followed Truman and he preceded Kennedy. The system extends throughout the entire contiguous United States. It even has roots in Hawaii, Alaska, and Puerto Rico. Though much of their construction is funded by the federal government, interstate highways are owned by the states in which they are built. Interstate highways have a very interesting numbering system in which primary interstates are assigned 1 or 2 digit numbers, and shorter routes are assigned 3-digit numbers where the last 2 digits match the parent route. Okay, let's go over that. The freeway comes from Madison to Milwaukee or from Milwaukee to Chicago, and it's known as I-94, correct? But around Milwaukee, we have 894, we have 794. Those shorter routes around Milwaukee are just access routes to get to particular points around the larger urban area. But the main highway system that connects Milwaukee with the rest of the Midwest is I-94, a 2-digit number. As of 2018, about 1/4 of all vehicle miles driven in the United States use the interstate highway system, which had a total length of 48,440 miles. So it has really taken off since 1956. It is how America gets around. Again, the interstate highway system developed a champion in Dwight Eisenhower, and ironically, it goes back to his days when he was serving in the Army. Specifically, we learned last week he began his Army career as a trainer. Well, in 1919, he was crossing America on a Motor Transport Corps convoy that drove on a part of the Lincoln Highway. And he thought to himself, there had to be a better way. He also was extremely impressed with the German system of autobahns that he learned about during World War II. And he wanted to bring things like that to America. So he was dissatisfied with what he experienced in 1919. He loved what he found out about Germany and their highway systems during the war. So that's a little bit about the highway system. It was proclaimed complete in 1992, but 2 of the original interstates, I-95 and I-70, were not continuous. Both of them as a result of local opposition, which blocked efforts to build the necessary connections to fully complete the highway system. So even when the federal government gets involved and wants to do what they do, all politics is local, and local opposition can really be a thorn in the side. It's also interesting that although the interstate highway system is a federal system, there are different rules and regulations as you go from state to state. For example, the maximum speed limit officially is 75 miles per hour in northern Maine. Several portions of I-10 and I-20 in rural Texas, they go as high as 80 miles per hour. There also are sections as they approach major urban areas that are as low as 40 miles per hour. So you really need to pay attention. Just because you're driving on the interstate doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to pay attention to those road signs. Don't want to get you going off on vacation sometime and getting a speeding ticket because of what you thought you learned here. Pay attention. How we designate mile markers is interesting too. On 1 or 2 digit interstates, the mile marker numbering almost always begins at the southern or western state line. 3 digit interstates with an even first number that form a complete circumferential circle bypass around a city feature mile markers that are numbered in a clockwise direction beginning just west of interstate that bisects the circumferential route near a south polar location. Really, now I know why traffic engineers go to school for as long as they do. I thought it was just so they could learn how to frustrate us by tearing up roads and destroying the routes we use to get back and forth to work. I think now that it's so that they can create all these sayings that really don't mean anything to us, but seem to mean a lot to traffic engineers. So that's a little bit about the interstate highway system in the United States. There's one anomaly about the highway system built into the law in 1956. 1 mile in every 5 must be absolutely straight. 1 mile in every 5 must be absolutely straight. Why? So that's our 3 questions for today. A little bit about the rainforest, a little bit about the desert, and a little bit about the highway system in Milwaukee. I'm sorry, in the United States, a little about the interstate system in the United States. Again, I hope you pay attention to the bumper music today as we exit. That's going to be the tiebreaker. How do you know if you're going to need the tiebreaker though? You got to play along. You got to get your answers into me on these 3 questions by noon on Monday. Maybe you can be in the winner's circle next week and get your picture on this show, just like Kelvin Schrader did this week. How do you get your answers to me? Email them to me at mbrever@eastcastleplace.com. Call me at 963-8425 and leave the message. Write down your answers on a sheet of paper. Slip them under my door. I'm on the 2nd floor immediately above the reception desk. Or you could also write out your answers and ask our receptionist to put them in my mailbox. I'll get them on Monday when I get in. Or any other way you can think of. Pass me in the hall. Give me the answers. I'll write them down and we'll see if you're the winner. Get your answers to me by noon on Monday and identify the bumper music in case you and someone else tie with the most numbers of questions correct. That's our show for this week. I really want to thank the management here at Channel 955, our president, Tyler Gudex, our executive producer, Laura Wengler. I also want to thank my producer, Scott McFerrin. He's also my cameraman, by the way, and Cooper Ledvina, my artistic director. They do a great job helping me. I also want to give a shout out this week to Jim Fry. Jim was extremely helpful in identifying questions for this week's show, and I want to thank him. He shows a great deal of interest and has helped me a great deal in finding questions that I think are going to be interesting. That's it for this week. I hope you have a great time watching Quick Trivia with Mike. Until next time, next Friday, I hope you all stay smart, you stay safe, and you be patient. We will all be together again soon to enjoy that East Castle Place hospitality. This has been Quick Trivia with Mike. I'm your host and quiz master, Mike Brever. So long, everybody.